Welcome, indie game developers! I'm beginning development on my next 2D game using C++ and SFML. For my last game, The Garden of Eating, I built the maps in its story mode using a basic text editor, saving the map and level data in JSON format. I quickly realized this was a tedious process, and I have no intention of going that route again. I'd heard of a free program called Tiled, and decided it was time to check it out. I thought I'd put together a video discussing my initial experience and impressions using Tiled. So, what exactly is Tiled? Its home on the web is at mapeditor.org, and it's a free level editor that's well suited to helping you make the maps and worlds for your games. Another way to talk about it is what it's not. Tiled is not a game engine, nor is Tiled itself a framework or library that you'll be packaging as part of your game, though there are plenty of libraries available to directly support your game's codebase. Instead, it's a tool you can use to build the asset files that describe your tile sets, maps, and levels. For the purpose of this introductory video, I'll be sticking to a top-down orthogonal view. Tiled also supports creating side view maps for platformer games, isometric views, or hexagonal maps. Tiled works with two types of asset files. The first is a tile set. Each tile set you create references either a single image file containing multiple rectangular-shaped graphics, or multiple image files. It's common practice in game development to group together graphics into a single image file, which I typically call a texture atlas. The second is a map. At its most basic, creating a map in Tiled simply involves picking which graphic to place at each position on a grid. However, it turns out that Tiled provides much more functionality than simply defining how your map looks. It's actually a full-featured level editor as well, allowing you to place custom objects such as enemy NPC spawn points, paths that NPCs might follow while on patrol, or regions that the character enters that might trigger events to occur. You can also organize your levels using layers. You have the freedom to decide how your game engine should process the layers, tiles, and objects you place. Tiled gives you two built-in properties called name and type. You can define your own conventions for your specific game needs to decide how these properties are used. On a tile set, for example, you could define types such as stone and sand to decide what sound the player makes while walking on that surface. In an object layer intended for spawn points, you could use the type property to define the enemy types such as giant rat or goblin, and the name property could be reserved for NPCs that have an actual name. You can also define custom properties. If a goblin normally has 30 hit points, for example, then you could create a custom property named hit points and set it to something higher on a specific goblin spawn point where you want to add an extra challenge. It's all up to you and your game how you make use of this. For myself, I found that the best way to grasp how I should use Tiled for my future game development was to look at the tile set and map files it saves in a text editor. I plan to save my files in JSON format. You can apparently build your own extensions to let you export these files into your own custom format, but that will be a topic for another day. I'm making this video in December of 2020. The most recent release was version 1.4.3, or the snapshot version on December 18th. I'm finding that the most recent official documentation is a little bit out of date. There are several references to example tile sets, but to find them you have to dig through the source code by either cloning the repository or downloading the files from GitHub. The sections on terrain and wang tiles are in need of updating. The terrain feature has been phased out in favor of the updated wang tiles feature. I may make a separate shorter video specifically on wang tiles. The concept of wang tiles was new to me, so the fact that this feature has been recently updated without the documentation being updated was a little confusing out of the gate. Once I figured out how to fully set up a wang set, I started to grasp how useful this tool would be for creating large maps. So, my overall initial impressions? Like any utility, the interface takes some getting used to, and the documentation does need some updating, though I'm sure that's on the way. But now that I've had a chance to tinker with Tiled for a few hours, I'm quite excited to start making use of it for my next 2D game project. As long as I can keep myself motivated, I hope to be putting out regular development updates on the progress of my game, including future videos on how I'm making use of some of the features in Tiled. So stay tuned to the Riley Entertainment Games channel.